Welcome back to Garden Studio. I'm Tessa Pinner, a designer and gardener in upstate South Carolina, Zone 8A. It is early March here, which means we're finally starting to see real signs of spring. The trees are budding out everywhere. The first daffodils are out and more are coming. Other spring bulbs like tulips and hyacinths and crocus are peeping out of the ground. It is just really exciting time after a couple of months of everything just feeling kind of dark and cold and dead. In this video, I am going to take you around my cottage garden, give you an update on the seeds that I've started, and talk you through some of the fun plans that I have for the spring. The first fun spring project is actually right here in front of me. These are living willow rods. I just got them in the mail today from Vermont, from Living Willow Farm. And I got advice from the farmer there about what would be best for my zone and for the use of small garden projects, supports, and wattle fencing. You can see here that I have 5 different bundles. These are all going to be good for slightly different things. They have different coloration to them, and this one is obviously the thickest. So for the sturdiest projects all the way down to things that are a little bit more delicate. I am so excited to have my own patch for coppicing and cutting and using in the garden. Last year, about this time, we were doing some massive grading work in this whole side of the yard, and we decided to make the chickens' permanent home along this property boundary. So we put up the fence that we could afford, which was just very simple metal fencing, found a reclaimed iron gate that was coming off a project, and called it done for the year. But I have spent the last year thinking, okay, what might I want to put along this fence? Because I don't want to look at it forever. I don't think it's all that attractive as a garden fence. If it were timber, if it were another material, sure. Or if we were on a farm, but this isn't really a farm. This is still a suburban cottage garden. So I want to hide the fence. So that is where the willow comes in. I'm not going to do the entire fence in willow because I will be coppicing it, which means cutting it back to the ground every year once the plants mature. So I'm thinking of doing groupings, and these will be cut into 3 pieces and basically just stuck in the ground along the fence, probably about 3 per fence section. And then I'll intersperse that with other plantings. So this is more about my plans for spring and summer. I won't probably do the other planting yet, but my big goal for spring is to get these willows in the ground while they're still fresh and live and will root very easily. While we are over on this side of the yard, it still feels pretty open and desolate to me. However, the green grass that we sowed in the paths is coming up. That's starting to feel alive. And these beds, the mounds that you can see here and here, actually have a lot going on. We did a wildflower seed mix last year, and a lot of the green on the ground now is basil rosettes of those perennials that are coming back. So I am really excited to see what this does this year. We also are hoping to plant blueberries on this mound in the next couple of months. We've called it Blueberry Hill already, so it's been christened. It will be blueberries. Here is a fig tree that I pulled out of a planter. It was root bound. It was going out the bottom of the planter. It needed to be in the ground. You can see it's a kind of unusual shape for a fig tree in the sense of I had sort of pruned it as a standard, which means tall and skinny rather than a big bush. And I'm just interested to see how that does. Fig trees are very adaptable. So I'm hoping it kind of stays tall and skinny, and then we might have to use a ladder to prune it. But either way, it'll have plenty of sun and plenty of space out here. The main things happening here in the kitchen garden are winter greens, so arugula, kale, and some bok choy that I'm allowing to bolt. It's a welcome source of nectar for pollinators to have Some greens bolting, other greens coming. Also in this bed, I have butter lettuce, mixed salad greens, spinach, a couple of broccolis, a couple of cabbages, some carrots along the back, and garlic here in the front. I wish these beds were more full, and I'll be honest, it's been a challenging winter because it's been so much colder here than we're used to having. And in the past 3 years that I've had this kitchen garden set up, we just haven't had such prolonged weeks of cold. And so I had a lot more germination and steady turnover in my winter greens in years past than I did this year. Actually, for the month of January and about half of February, I had to stop picking lettuce and greens because nothing was growing. Now, you northern gardeners are probably laughing because I know we're a little bit spoiled here in the south in that we can grow greens all winter. But this winter made me appreciate kind of the range that even we can have here. And I think maybe next winter I might try getting a small frost cloth or row cover to keep one of my beds a little more protected, a little bit warmer, just so I can keep picking those winter greens all winter. I have lots of germination in this bed of seedlings that are coming. This is all different lettuces that I've sown that I'm hoping I'll get one more wave from before I switch these beds over for summer crops. We're also at the end of this planter display here. This is such a glorious time of year for the pansies and the violas. They look so good right before it's time to rip them out. But one thing I've really loved having in a planter this winter is the Hellebores. This is one that I have pulled off stage when it's not blooming and just kind of put it towards the back of another arrangement. But then as soon as January hits, move it out here, let it come up, and just really let it steal the show at a time when we are craving blooms. Speaking of hellebores, my hellebores in this shade bed here are doing so beautifully. All of the ones in this bed are old-fashioned varieties. And what I mean by that is they are the kind that the heads droop down. So they aren't as showy in a garden center as the ones in the planter that I just showed you where the blooms face up. These have this sort of graceful drooping that makes them a great fit for a hillside or the edge of a wall where you can look up into them. One thing I love about these old-fashioned ones is they do seed around a lot. So I have tons of little babies even coming out here beyond the bed line, and I'm just gonna let them go. I now have my husband mow out about to here where you can see the line of my feet are. I don't have him mow all the way to the edge because I actually want the bed to come out. I'm letting the seedlings go, and over time my hope is that this will all be a very lush, large patch of hellebores. Another thing that is so special this time of year, probably one of the most unusual flowering shrubs, this is Edgeworthia chrysantha. It just smells so beautiful. There are these gorgeous gradient flowers. Again, they're kind of pointed down, but they're so dramatic in a late winter, early spring garden. A great combination with these hellebores, with the ferns. Just one of my favorite moments of this bed. I'm always kind of shocked when I look back at pictures of this time of year when it is high summer in this garden and everything is up to here and lush and colorful. But right now it is still looking pretty dormant. However, there are things happening. I have tulips coming up in these beds. Again, all the basal rosettes of the perennials are just starting to kind of flush back out. There's not a lot of drama right now in this garden, but there is a lot of hopeful movement happening. The roses are starting to leaf back out. It really is time for me to prune these this month. And I think last year I did a relatively conservative prune. I took out dead canes, old, diseased, and dead, and this year I actually think I'm going to experiment with giving the entire bushes a pretty stiff haircut. I can take about 1/3 of the volume out and I want to see just explosion of new growth on these roses. They've been in the ground a couple of years. I think it's time. I'll shape the boxwoods once all threat of frost is past in the next month or so. I will go around and any of the standing seed heads that are still up, I'll give it one final cleanup haircut before the spring. This is the time for the spireas to come out and really wow us. This particular variety is called Ogon. It has chartreuse foliage. It's one of the earliest blooming deciduous shrubs, and it is just such a welcome sight. Wonderful in cut arrangements and very forgiving to pruning. So you can prune it way back, have it really reflush. I have loved having this in my spring garden. It also has a faint kind of honey smell. That is lovely. The path garden and pavilion area has undergone quite the change in the last couple of months. After Helene, when we had a large pecan fall, we felt we needed to do some redesign to this area. And so I am so excited to see what it looks like this coming summer when everything has filled in. So I have these 2 new beds over here and over here. And all in all, the pavilion itself is not changing much. I'll be planting a couple of hydrangeas that I pulled out from the front. In about the next month, I am going to plant a couple of climbing roses on the left and the right side that will train up each of those pillars and hopefully eventually meet in the middle. And that will just add a layer of romance to the pavilion. It is a little stark at the moment. I have a lot of seedlings that are going to be going in this bed and that bed over there. And that should really fill out these spaces along with summer bulbs, dahlias, lilies, things that are going to get 2 to 4 feet tall and really just punch this space full of life and color. I already transplanted a couple of irises next to the arborvitae in the pot. I top dressed with what was supposed to be potting soil in the bag. It was actually basically just decomposed bark. So you can see I top dressed this. After I plant the seedlings in, I will go back over with a layer of leaf mulch. I just cannot wait to see what spring and summer really bring in this new garden space. Welcome to the Seed Lab. I have a rack here with 4 shelves. The top half of this is largely perennials, and then I have annuals on the bottom and some annuals over here. I did a full explanation last year on my seed starting setup, these specific lights, how I did the very rudimentary pulley system. It has worked well. Someday I would love to upgrade to real grow lights and a little bit sturdier pulley system. But for now, this has been functioning just fine and is not expensive. I tried something new this year with a few trays that are not subdivided into cells, just to test germination on some of the new perennials that I had not grown. And I'm glad I did, because look at this tray, for instance. Excellent germination in the middle. I have 3 things in each one, so I can prick these out and have tons of little baby plants. But then this one down here, I guess I didn't give it what it needed, or somehow the seeds just didn't respond in the same way. Different species, different response, and I only have 1 of those. So that just means when I don't know what something's going to do, I haven't devoted a whole tray to it. With cell divisions, this one is a lot more sparse as well. So I'll pot these up into larger after just a little bit more time. My goal is for all of this to go out in the garden towards the end of April. So I'm going to let them get a little bit bigger here, and then I'll probably start moving them outside periodically during the day just to start hardening them off. I definitely don't want to expose them to any extreme temperatures, but especially the perennials, they can take that temperature, just they have to be introduced gradually. So over the next few weeks, I will be moving them in and outside and getting them ready to plant into the garden spaces. We are in the swan song of cool season annual planting. I have the planters here with pansies, violas. This is a spiller pansy that has done so well. I've loved it. And for about another month, it'll be great. And then in April, I will replace these annuals. The boxwoods will stay with something for summer. But for the care of these planters through the winter, I have really just been out here deadheading them every so often and feeding them every 2 to 3 weeks with a granular slow release feed to promote the blooms. Probably my favorite thing from this season's planting has been these spilling violas. They have been gorgeous. This is the variety Cool Wave. I planted them back, I think in October, and they are just looking beautiful. They will be that way for about another month, and then in mid-April, I will take these out and replant them for summer. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that spring is off to a wonderful start for all of you and that you have a great week in your own gardens. Happy gardening.